The human was supposed to die. Let me be perfectly clear about this, because apparently my species, the Zeltharians, have a talent for overlooking the obvious until it comes back to bite us in our collective posterior regions. We designed the test specifically to kill her, not wound, not traumatize, not send her running back to her little blue planet with nightmares. Kill, as in reduce to constituent atoms, scatter across the cosmic void, become one with the infinite darkness kind of dead. Instead, Captain Maya Torres walked back into our command center with a grin that could power a small star system. "Well, that was fun," she said, brushing what looked suspiciously like Event Horizon residue off her environmental suit. "Got anything stronger?" Commander Crix-9 dropped his datapad. The metallic clatter echoed through the observation deck like a death knell for our collective sanity. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sure sign of acute psychological distress among my kind. I felt my own respiratory gills flutter in sympathy. "Impossible," he whispered, his voice crackling through the universal translator. "The gravitational shear alone should have what?" Maya interrupted, pulling off her helmet and shaking out hair that somehow still looked better than mine after a trip to the Galactic hairdresser. "Spaghettified me, compressed me into a quantum singularity, turned me into exotic matter." She laughed. Actually, laughed. The sound bounced off the reinforced walls of our most secure facility, like a sonic weapon designed specifically to shatter Zeltharian confidence. "Oh, it tried," she continued, tossing her helmet to a nearby maintenance drone that fumbled the catch spectacularly. The time dilation was interesting. I experienced about 3 subjective hours while you all apparently waited 6 standard days. Did you know that near the event horizon you can actually hear the universe screaming? It's quite beautiful, in a cosmically terrifying sort of way. 6 days. We had mourned her for 6 days. I had personally composed 17 grief symphonies in the traditional Zeltharian manner, complete with ceremonial tentacle weaving. The High Council had already begun drafting the official report to the Galactic Federation, explaining how the human test subject had courageously sacrificed herself for the advancement of science. Instead, here she stood, apparently having enjoyed her vacation to the most lethal gravitational anomaly in our local cluster. The test parameters were precise. I managed to stammer, checking my readings for the 14th time. Quantum class black hole, 10 solar masses, stable accretion disk. The Hawking radiation alone should have cooked me like a protein synthesizer on maximum heat. Yeah, I felt that too. Maya stretched, joints popping in ways that made my exoskeleton ache sympathetically. "Turns out human cellular regeneration operates on principles your science teams hadn't quite figured out yet." Who knew? Commander Crix-9 had gone very still. In Zeltharian body language, this was equivalent to a human standing on a chair screaming. His primary manipulator arms began the rapid clicking pattern that indicated either extreme agitation or preparation for combat. Given that we were supposedly the most advanced military scientists in the galaxy, and a single human had just casually strolled back from certain death, I was betting on both. "Run the bioscans again," he ordered, his voice dropping to that dangerous whisper that preceded either brilliant discoveries or spectacular explosions. "Full spectrum analysis. I want to know what she is." The medical drones swarmed around Maya like mechanical insects, their sensors probing and scanning with increasing desperation. Red lights flashed. Warning klaxons wailed. Several of the more sensitive instruments simply shut down, overwhelmed by readings that made no sense according to everything we thought we knew about physics. Maya stood patiently through it all, still wearing that infuriating smile. "The results are inconclusive," announced Dr. Vorth, 12, our chief cynobiologist. His voice carried the defeated tone of someone whose life's work had just been invalidated by a single data point. "Her cellular structure appears unchanged. No radiation damage, no gravitational stress markers, no temporal displacement symptoms. It's as if she never left the station." "But she did leave," I protested, gesturing at the quantum tracking displays that clearly showed her trajectory into the black hole's ergosphere. We have 17 different sensor arrays confirming her passage beyond the event horizon. The gravitational wave detectors registered her crossing. By every law of physics we understand, she should be dead, Maya finished cheerfully. Yes, you have mentioned that. Repeatedly. I'm starting to think you don't appreciate having me around. She moved to the observation window, gazing out at the black hole that floated in space like a cosmic eye, its accretion disk spinning lazily around the point of no return. Her reflection in the reinforced transparent aluminum showed no signs of the existential horror that should have been etched into her features after experiencing the universe's most extreme gravitational environment. It's beautiful out there, she said softly, and for the first time, her voice carried something other than casual amusement. Do you know what it's like to fall past the point where space and time become meaningless? To watch the universe blue shift into frequencies that don't have names, to feel the fundamental forces of reality trying to tear you apart, and failing because you are too stubborn to die. Commander Crix 9 leaned forward, his interest overriding his alarm. The human cognitive response to temporal distortion is documented as severe psychological trauma. You should be catatonic. Should be a lot of things. Maya agreed, turning back to face us. Should be dead. Should be insane. Should be a cloud of rapidly expanding plasma. But here's the thing about humans that your databases apparently missed. She paused, and I felt that familiar tingle of impending revelation that preceded either breakthrough discoveries or catastrophic military defeats. We don't like being told what we should be. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft hum of life support systems and the distant gravitational resonance of the black hole itself. 36 of the galaxy's most brilliant scientific minds stood frozen, staring at a single human who had just invalidated our understanding of physics, biology, and the fundamental nature of existence itself. The real question, Maya continued, settling into a chair that automatically adjusted to accommodate her alien physiology, is what happens next. You designed this test to prove humans weren't ready for advanced gravitational manipulation technology, that we were too fragile, too limited, too primitive to handle the forces that shaped galactic civilization. She was right, of course. The test had been proposed by the Galactic Federation's Advanced Species Council as a final evaluation before granting humanity access to the quantum technologies that allowed faster-than-light travel, gravitational engineering, and the manipulation of space-time itself. The assumption had been that humans would either refuse the test entirely or fail spectacularly, proving once and for all that they needed another 1,000 years of development before joining the galactic community as equal. Instead, Maya said, her voice taking on an edge that made my survival instincts start sending urgent messages to my brain, you have discovered that humans are considerably more difficult to kill than your models predicted. Now you have to decide what to do with that information. Commander Crix 9's clicking intensified. The test results must be reported to the High Council immediately. The implications for galactic security are significant, Maya agreed, but not in the way you think. She stood, moving with the casual confidence of someone who had just survived the impossible and found it mildly entertaining. You see, Commander, there's something else about humans that your psychological profiles missed. We don't just survive the impossible. We remember it, we learn from it, and we get really, really curious about what else might be out there. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees, or maybe that was just my circulatory system responding to the sudden realization that we might have made a terrible mistake. The black hole, Maya continued, her smile returning but somehow less comforting now, showed me things, structures inside the event horizon that shouldn't exist, technology that makes your most advanced systems look like stone tools, and something else, something that's been waiting in there for a very long time. She moved to the central display, fingers dancing across controls that should have been incomprehensible to someone from a species that had only discovered fire a few thousand years ago. The holographic projector flickered to life, displaying readings that made absolutely no sense. "What is that?" whispered Dr. Vorth 12, his voice barely audible above the humming machinery. "That," Maya said, her voice carrying a note of anticipation that sent ice through my veins, is why you are going to give humanity full access to gravitational manipulation technology. Because what's waiting inside that black hole isn't going to stay there forever, and when it decides to come out, you are going to want humans on your side. The hologram rotated slowly, revealing geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Mathematical structures that seem to exist in more dimensions than our reality typically allows, and pulsing at the center of it all, something that looked disturbingly like a heartbeat. "The test is over," Maya announced, her smile now sharp enough to cut through reinforced battle armor. "You wanted to know if humans were ready for advanced technology. Congratulations. You have just discovered that the real question is whether the galaxy is ready for humans." Commander Crix 9 reached for his emergency communication device with trembling manipulator arms. "I need to contact the High Council immediately. This changes everything." "Yes," Maya agreed, settling back into her chair and crossing her legs with the casual air of someone who had just upended the cosmic order, and found it rather satisfying. "It does." Alarms began wailing throughout the station and emergency protocols activated across multiple star systems. I couldn't help but wonder if we had just passed our own test, or if we had simply discovered that some tests are designed not to evaluate the subject, but to reveal the true nature of those doing the testing. Maya Torres sat in the center of the chaos, still smiling, still radiating that infuriating confidence that suggested she knew something the rest of us didn't. Something important. Something that was going to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. And as the first emergency response fleets began powering up their faster-than-light drives, I realized with growing horror that our test hadn't killed the human at all. It had set her free. The High Council arrived in exactly 47 minutes and 32 seconds. I know this, because I was counting. When you have just witnessed a member of a supposedly primitive species casually return from a journey that should have reduced her to subatomic particles, time becomes very important. Every second that passed was another second for Maya Torres to sit in that chair, smiling like she knew the punchline to a joke that would probably destroy civilization as we knew it. The council chamber filled with the galaxy's most powerful beings. Chancellor Roth Prime of the Hegemony, his crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated extreme agitation. Admiral Kess 14 of the Void Fleet, her biomechanical enhancements humming with barely contained energy. Even the enigmatic sage Null 7 had emerged from his meditation cycles, his ethereal form flickering between dimensions with unusual intensity. Maya looked around the assembled might of galactic civilization and yawned. "Well, this is cozy," she said, stretching again with that casual disregard for protocol that made my species' diplomatic training feel utterly inadequate. "Though I have to say, for beings who have mastered faster-than-light travel, you sure took your time getting here." Chancellor Roth Prime's form flared brighter, a clear sign of offense among his kind. "Human, you will explain immediately how you survived exposure to quantum-level gravitational forces. Our models indicate that organic matter can—" "Your models are wrong," Maya interrupted, and the temperature in the room dropped another 10 degrees. "But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is what your models missed about black holes in general." She stood, moving to the central display where the holographic representation of her impossible readings still rotated slowly. The mathematical structures seemed to pulse with their own inner light, creating shadows that fell in directions that shouldn't exist. "You see this?" Maya gestured to the display. "This is what's inside the event horizon. Not empty space, not crushed matter, not even exotic plasma. This is a construction, something built, something that's been waiting for someone stupid enough or crazy enough to go looking for it." Admiral Kess 14 leaned forward, her optical sensors focusing with mechanical precision. "You are suggesting intelligent design within a black hole's singularity. That's impossible. The gravitational forces alone would prevent any form of organized matter from existing according to physics as you understand it," Maya finished. "But here's what I learned during my little vacation to the universe's most exclusive resort. Physics is a lot more flexible than your textbooks suggest, especially when you are dealing with beings who figured out how to manipulate space-time before your species discovered agriculture. The silence that followed was the kind that precedes either revolutionary breakthroughs or galactic wars, possibly both. The structures I found, Maya continued, her voice taking on that edge of anticipation that made my survival instinct start planning escape routes. They are not just buildings, they are machines. Vast, incomprehensible machines that have been dormant for millions of years, and they are starting to wake up. She manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on sections that showed geometric patterns so complex they seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The black hole isn't a natural phenomenon. It's a storage device, a way to keep something incredibly powerful in stasis until the right conditions were met. What conditions? Whispered Sage 07, his voice carrying harmonics that made reality itself seem to vibrate. Maya's smile widened. The arrival of a species capable of surviving the journey to retrieve it. The implications hit the assembled council like a quantum torpedo to the collective consciousness. If Maya was right, if humans possessed some unique ability to survive gravitational extremes that no other known species could match, then the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted dramatically. This is why you are going to give humanity full access to gravitational manipulation technology, Maya announced, settling back into her chair with the casual confidence of someone who had just played the winning hand in a cosmic poker game. Because those machines, they are not going to stay sleeping forever, and when they wake up, you are going to need someone who can go back in there and either negotiate with them or shut them down. Commander Crix 9 had been suspiciously quiet during the council's arrival, but now his clicking reached a crescendo that indicated either a breakthrough or a complete mental breakdown. The quantum resonance patterns, he said suddenly, his voice carrying the manic energy of someone who had just solved an impossible puzzle. They are not random. They are a signal, a beacon. Maya nodded approvingly. Very good, Commander. I was wondering when someone would figure that out. The machines have been broadcasting for millennia, waiting for someone to answer. Someone who could survive the journey to the source. And you answered, Admiral Kess 14 said, her voice carrying the flat tone of someone who had just realized they might be facing an extinction-level threat. I did more than answer, Maya replied, her expression shifting to something that made my entire species' instinctive fear response activate simultaneously. I made contact. The chamber erupted in chaos. Alarms began wailing as security protocols activated across multiple star systems. Emergency fleets that had been on standby suddenly found themselves on high alert. The various species representatives began shouting in languages that the universal translator couldn't even attempt to parse. Through it all, Maya sat calmly, waiting for the noise to die down. The beings who built those machines, she said once the chaos had subsided to mere panic. They are called the Architects. They are the ones who seeded this galaxy with the first intelligent life. They are also the ones who have been waiting for their children to grow up enough to come looking for them. Chancellor Roth Prime's form flickered with colors that indicated severe psychological distress. You are suggesting that all galactic civilization is the result of some ancient experiment. Not an experiment, Maya corrected. A test. The same kind of test you just gave me, actually. They wanted to see which of their children would develop the capability to survive the journey to the source. Which species would be brave enough or stupid enough to dive into a black hole just to see what was on the other side. She stood again, moving to the observation window where the black hole continued its eternal dance with space-time. The Architects have been sleeping for millions of years, waiting for someone to pass their test. Congratulations, Galaxy. Humanity just graduated. The implications were staggering. If Maya was telling the truth, then humans hadn't just survived their test. They had passed a test that had been running for millions of years. A test that every other species in the galaxy had failed simply by being too sensible to attempt it. What do they want? Asked Sage 07, his form flickering between dimensions with increasing frequency. Maya's reflection in the window showed that infuriating smile again. That's the beautiful part. They want to meet their children. All of them. They want to see what we have built, what we have learned, what we have become. And they want to give us the tools to build something even better. And if we refuse, Admiral Kes-14's voice carried the weight of someone who had spent their entire career preparing for threats that suddenly seemed trivial by comparison. Then they will find another way to wake up, Maya said simply. The machines are already starting to activate. My presence triggered something that can't be stopped. Within a standard year, maybe less, they will break containment. The black hole will collapse, releasing technology that makes your most advanced systems look like cave paintings. She turned back to face the assembled council, her expression serious for the first time since returning from her impossible journey. But here's the thing about the architects. They are not conquerors. They are teachers. They want to help us become something greater than we are. The question is whether we are wise enough to accept their help. The chamber fell silent again, but this time it was the silence of beings who had just realized that everything they thought they knew about the universe was about to change. The vote, Chancellor Rothprime said finally, his form stabilizing into patterns that indicated reluctant acceptance. On humanity's admission to full galactic citizenship. It was scheduled for next cycle. I'd recommend moving that up, Maya said cheerfully, because ready or not, the architects are coming, and they are very interested in meeting the species that was crazy enough to dive into a black hole just to say hello. As the council began the frantic process of rewriting galactic law to accommodate the new reality, I found myself staring at Maya Torres with something approaching awe. She had done more than survive the impossible. She had turned a test designed to prove human inadequacy into a demonstration of human uniqueness. And as the first architect signals began emanating from the black hole, their ancient harmonics carrying promises of knowledge and transformation that would reshape the galaxy forever, I realized that our test had revealed something crucial about the nature of intelligence itself. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from beings who are too stupid to know that something is impossible. Maya Torres had just proven that stupidity, when combined with sufficient determination and an alarming lack of self-preservation instincts, could literally move the universe. The architects were coming, and they were coming because a human had been brave enough or crazy enough to knock on their door. As emergency protocols activated across 17 star systems, and the most powerful beings in the galaxy scrambled to prepare for contact with entities that had been manipulating space-time since before most of their species had evolved. Maya Torres sat in her chair, still smiling. But the story wasn't over, not by a long shot. There's one more thing, Maya said, her voice cutting through the chaos of emergency communications and frantic preparation. The architects didn't just wake up because I visited them. They woke up because they detected something else, something that's been hunting them across the galaxy for millions of years. The temperature in the chamber dropped so suddenly that frost began forming on the observation windows. Every being present turned to stare at Maya with expressions that ranged from terror to outright disbelief. "You are joking," Admiral Kes-14 said, but her voice carried the flat tone of someone who already knew the answer. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Maya replied, and for the first time since her return, her smile faltered. "The architects have been hiding in black holes for a reason. They are not just teachers or benevolent ancestors. They are refugees." She manipulated the holographic display again, revealing new data that made the previous readings look simple by comparison. Geometric patterns that seemed to exist in negative space, mathematical structures that hurt to perceive directly. And threading through it all, something that looked disturbingly like a trail of destruction stretching across cosmic distances. "The Devourers," Maya continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more weight than the loudest battle cry. "That's what the architects call them. Beings from outside our reality who consume entire dimensions for sustenance. They have been systematically hunting down the architects for eons, destroying everything they touch." Commander Crick's 9's clicking had stopped entirely, which among my species indicated either complete mental shutdown or the kind of focus that preceded either brilliant discoveries or spectacular violence. "The quantum distortions we have been detecting at the galactic rim," he said slowly, "the ones our scientists attributed to natural phenomena, are the Devourers' calling cards," Maya finished. "They are getting closer, The architects estimate we have maybe 6 months before they reach our galactic cluster. Maybe. The chamber a bit in chaos again, but this time, it was the chaos of beings who had just realized that their entire existence was about to be threatened by forces beyond their comprehension. Emergency fleets that had been preparing for first contact suddenly found themselves facing the prospect of defending against entities that could literally eat reality. This is why the architects need us, Maya said, her voice somehow carrying over the panic. Not just humans. All of us, every species in the galaxy. Because the Devourers aren't just hunting the architects, they are hunting anyone who might carry the architects' knowledge or technology. She stood, moving to the central display where the data continued to stream in from the black hole. The architects have been preparing for this moment for millions of years. They have been waiting for their children to grow strong enough, smart enough, diverse enough to help them fight back. And now that time has come, Chancellor Roth Prime's form had stabilized into patterns that indicated grim determination. What do they require of us? Maya's smile returned, but it was different now. Sharper, more dangerous. Everything, every ship, every weapon, every piece of technology, every brilliant mind in the galaxy. Because the Devourers aren't just coming for the architects, they are coming for all of us. The implications were staggering. The test hadn't been about determining whether humans were ready for advanced technology. It had been about determining whether galactic civilization was ready for a war that would determine the fate of reality itself. The gravitational manipulation technology, Admiral Kess 14 said, her optical sensors focusing with mechanical precision. It's not just for exploration, is it? It's a weapon, Maya confirmed. The only weapon that can hurt beings who exist partially outside normal space-time. The architects developed it as a last resort, but they never had the chance to use it before they were forced to hide. She manipulated the display again, revealing schematics that made my engineering training feel like finger painting. Devices that could manipulate gravity itself, turning space-time into a weapon of unprecedented power. Technology that could create artificial black holes, collapse dimensions or tear holes in reality itself. But here's the catch, Maya continued, her voice carrying that edge of anticipation that had become disturbingly familiar. The technology requires something the architects don't have, something that apparently only exists in species that evolved naturally, without their direct intervention. What? Whispered Sage 07, his form flickering between dimensions with increasing instability. Chaos, Maya said simply. Unpredictability. The ability to make decisions that don't follow logical patterns. The architects are too perfect, too ordered. They can create the technology, but they can't use it effectively, because they can't think like their enemies. She gestured to the assembled council, her expression shifting to something that made my survival instincts start planning multiple escape routes simultaneously. But we can. Every species in this room evolved through chaos. Through random chance, through the kind of beautiful, illogical accidents that create truly creative intelligence. We are not just their children, we are their secret weapon. The chamber fell silent, as the full implications sank in. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations weren't just about to receive the technology of the gods. They were about to become the gods' army, in a war that would determine whether reality itself would survive. The human test, Commander Crix 9 said, suddenly, his voice carrying the manic energy of someone who had just solved the final piece of an impossible puzzle. It wasn't about surviving the black hole, it was about proving that organic intelligence could interface with architect technology without losing its essential chaos. Maya nodded approvingly. Very good, Commander. I was wondering when someone would figure that out. The architects needed to know that we could use their tools without becoming too much like them, that we could remain unpredictable while wielding unimaginable power, and humans passed that test. Admiral Kess 14 said, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had just realized that the galaxy's newest members were also its most dangerous. Spectacularly, Maya agreed. Though to be fair, every species in this room has something unique to contribute. The Zeltharians' analytical precision, the Hegemony's creative adaptability, the Void Fleet's tactical innovation. even the sage's interdimensional perception. The architects didn't just want one species to pass their test. They wanted all of us to develop our unique strengths. She moved back to the observation window, where the black hole had begun to pulse with new energy. The devourers are coming. They are beings of pure order, consuming everything that doesn't fit their perfect, sterile vision of reality. But they have never faced anything like us. They have never encountered the beautiful chaos of organic evolution, guided by random chance and stupid courage. As if summoned by her words, the black hole's accretion disk began to shift, revealing structures that defied every law of physics I thought I understood. Massive constructs were emerging from the event horizon, their surfaces covered in patterns that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "The architect fleet," Maya said, her voice carrying something that might have been awe. "They are coming out of hiding, all of them, from every black hole in the galaxy. They are preparing for the final battle." The constructs continued to emerge, each one the size of a small moon, their surfaces gleaming with technologies that made our most advanced systems look like stone tools. But there was something else emerging with them, something that made my species' most primitive terror responses activate simultaneously. "The devourers," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible above the humming machinery. "They are here." At the edge of sensor range, space itself began to twist and buckle. Reality warped around shapes that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, but somehow did. The devourers had found us, and they were hungry. "Well," Maya said, her smile returning with a vengeance, "I guess the real test is just beginning." She had passed the test. We all had. And now we were about to discover whether passing the test was enough to survive what came next. The universe would never be the same if it survived at all. The first devourer ship materialized 3 light minutes from our position, and I immediately understood why the architects had been hiding for millions of years. It wasn't a ship in any sense that our languages could properly describe. It was a wound in reality itself, a tear in the fabric of space-time that hurt to look at directly. Where it existed, the background radiation of the universe simply stopped, as if the fundamental constants of physics had decided to take a vacation. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Maya said, her voice carrying that disturbing note of appreciation that suggested she found cosmic horrors aesthetically pleasing. The architects showed me recordings of devourer fleets, entire star systems just gone, not destroyed, not consumed, simply edited out of existence like they never were. Admiral Kess 14's biomechanical enhancements were sparking with feedback as her sensors tried to process something that existed in negative space. "How do you fight something that can delete reality?" "Very carefully," Maya replied, standing and moving to a control panel that hadn't been there moments before. The human's casual interaction with architect technology that was reshaping itself around her presence was almost as disturbing as the approaching interdimensional predators, and with a lot of help from beings who think sideways, she pressed her palm against a surface that looked like crystallized mathematics. And suddenly, the entire station was flooded with information that made my consciousness feel like it was being stretched across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Tactical displays showed the positions of architect fleets emerging from black holes throughout the galaxy. Defensive grids powered by technology that turned gravity itself into a weapon, and threading through it all, the chaotic beauty of organic military doctrine being integrated with machines that had been built by gods. "The Zeltharian analytical networks," Maya said, her voice now carrying harmonics that suggested direct interface with systems beyond my comprehension. "Link them to the architect prediction matrices, the hegemony's creative adaptation protocols, merge them with the gravitational manipulation cores, void fleet tactical innovation, integrate it with the dimensional warfare system." She was orchestrating the defense of the galaxy like a conductor leading a symphony composed of pure impossibility. And somehow, it was working. "The devourers operate on perfect logic," she continued, her eyes now glowing with the same light that emanated from the architect construct. "They can predict every rational response, counter every logical strategy. but they have never encountered organic intelligence that can make decisions based on intuition, emotion, and sheer bloody-minded stubbornness. Second Devourer ship materialized inside our defensive perimeter, bypassing shields and sensors that should have been impossible to circumvent. Reality buckled around its presence, and I watched in horror as one of our monitoring stations simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, it just stopped being real. Now would be a good time for one of those sideways thoughts, Commander Crix-9 said, his voice carrying the kind of calm that preceded either heroic last stands or spectacular nervous breakdowns. Maya's smile became something that would have made predators think twice about hunting humans. Already on it, she interfaced with the Architects systems again, and suddenly every human ship in the galaxy received the same impossible download. Not just technical specifications for gravitational weapons, but something else. Something that made my species' most advanced tactical computers start weeping electronic tears of joy. Human military doctrine. Maya explained, her voice now carrying the weight of strategic genius backed by technology that could reshape space-time. Every dirty trick, every desperate gambit, every brilliant moment of chaos that organic intelligence has ever devised, the architects are sharing it with every species in the galaxy. The transformation was instantaneous and beautiful. Seltharian analytical precision merged with human tactical unpredictability. Hegemony creative adaptation integrated with Void Fleet strategic innovation. Sage interdimensional perception combined with technologies that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. And at the center of it all, Maya Torres stood like a conductor orchestrating the most impossible symphony in galactic history. The Devourers expect us to fight like the Architects, she said, her voice now carrying harmonics that made reality itself seem to listen, logical, predictable, following the optimal strategies that their perfect minds can calculate. Instead, we are going to fight like us, chaotic, unpredictable, making decisions that don't make sense until they work perfectly. The third Devourer ship appeared directly above our position, and I felt the fundamental structure of space-time begin to unravel. Stars in the distance started flickering out of existence as the entity's presence spread through local space like a virus of non-existence. Execute Operation Stupid Ideas, Maya announced, and somehow every being in the Galactic Defense Network knew exactly what she meant. The Architect construct suddenly began moving in patterns that defied every law of physics and military strategy simultaneously. Instead of forming defensive lines, they scattered randomly. Instead of concentrating firepower, they began dancing through space like cosmic butterflies. Instead of following optimal targeting solutions, they started shooting at empty space. It was the most beautiful display of organized chaos I had ever witnessed. And it was working. The Devourer's perfect logic couldn't process strategies that made no sense. Their predictive algorithms broke down when faced with decisions that followed no rational pattern. For the first time in millions of years, the entities that consume dimensions found themselves confused. The quantum uncertainty principle, Maya explained, her voice now carrying the weight of someone who had just solved a puzzle that had stumped gods. The Architects forgot that at the quantum level, reality itself is based on probability and chaos. The Devourers can manipulate classical physics, but they can't control true randomness. She pressed her palm against the crystallized mathematics again, and suddenly every organic intelligence in the galaxy found their consciousness linked to the Architect Defense Network, not controlled, not directed, but integrated. Every random thought, every chaotic impulse, every moment of brilliant irrationality became part of the system. We are not just fighting with Architect technology, Maya said, her smile now radiant with the kind of joy that came from watching impossible things become possible. We are fighting with the combined chaos of every organic intelligence in the galaxy, every species that ever made a decision based on hope instead of logic, every being that ever chose courage over calculation. The fourth Devourer ship appeared, and then the fifth, and then dozens more. Reality began to buckle under the strain of their presence. But for every ship that materialized, the combined chaos of organic intelligence found new ways to confuse, misdirect, and outmaneuver entities that had been consuming dimensions since before time had meaning. "The beautiful thing about chaos," Maya said, her voice now carrying the weight of victory that hadn't been achieved yet but somehow felt inevitable, "is that it's truly random. You can't predict it, you can't control it, and you can't consume it. Because chaos isn't just disorder, it's the creative force that makes everything possible." The Devourers were retreating, not destroyed, not defeated, but confused enough to withdraw from a battle they couldn't understand. For the first time in millions of years, perfect order had encountered perfect chaos and discovered that perfection was overrated. "They will be back," Maya said, her voice returning to something approaching normal human ranges. "But next time, we will be ready. The architects have their children now, and their children have learned how to fight like themselves while wielding the tools of gods." She turned to face the assembled Galactic Council, her expression shifting to something that made my survival instincts start planning celebratory festivals instead of escape routes. "The test is over," she announced. "All of us passed. The architects have their allies, the galaxy has its protectors, and the Devourers have learned that organic intelligence is a lot more dangerous than they calculated." Emergency protocols began powering down, and the most powerful beings in the galaxy started the process of integrating architect technology into their civilizations. I found myself staring at Maya Torres with something that went beyond awe into the realm of genuine terror. She had not just survived the impossible, she had turned the impossible into a weapon and used it to save reality itself. And as the first reports came in from across the galaxy, confirming that Devourer fleets were withdrawing from multiple sectors, I realized that our test had revealed something fundamental about the nature of intelligence, chaos, and the beautiful unpredictability of organic life. Sometimes the most important victories come from beings who are too creative to follow the rules of reality. Maya Torres had just proven that creativity, when backed by sufficient firepower and an alarming lack of respect for the fundamental laws of physics, could literally save the universe. The architects were no longer hiding, the Devourers were no longer hunting, and the galaxy had learned that sometimes the best defense against perfect order was perfectly chaotic offense. As the combined fleets of organic intelligence and architect technology began establishing permanent defensive positions throughout the galaxy, Maya Torres settled back into her chair, still smiling. She had passed the test. We all had, and the universe, chaotic and beautiful and impossible as ever, would definitely never be the same.